Hey everybody, Ben Mankiewicz and Jason Rubin. Turks and Jerks, week 9 in the NFL. We're really at the halfway point. Most teams have played exactly 8 games. And the big story, at least for me, having grown up in Washington, spent most of the last month back in D.C., the story that I believe 100%, that 2 parts of it. The part I believe most is that the order to start Robert Griffin III, it's the third, right?
It's the third.
Okay, I get confused sometimes. I always want to call him RG4. The decision to start Robert Griffin came from Bruce Allen and mostly Dan Snyder, because Bruce Allen doesn't do anything unless Dan Snyder tells him to. And that's ridiculous, that a decision on the quarterback to start in an NFL game would not come from the head coach of that NFL team in consultation with the offensive coordinator, the quarterback's coach. Those are the only people that should be involved in making that decision. So ESPN's Brett McHenry reports that that decision came from above, that people in the Redskin organization, unnamed, thought it came from above. Now, it leaves out, and let's ignore the fact that it probably, if he's ready, they might be right, but that's not the point. Colt McCoy just led the team to 2 wins, although it was really the defense that led them to the 2 wins. They scored 39 points over those 2 games. And nobody thinks Colt McCoy should be a starting quarterback on a good NFL team.
Correct.
So the issue is not whether Griffin should be the starter when ready. The issue is, did he think it was ready? Would it have benefited to maybe wait another week, a bye week, and let Griffin come back after that?
For somebody as held together by duct tape, as we've mentioned before, as Robert Griffin III, don't rush him. I don't think the Redskins are necessarily gearing up for a playoff push this year, or they have a playoff caliber team.
They don't.
With RG3 at the helm, maybe it's a big difference maker and a very strong, talented quarterback.
But that's the thing, Jason. We don't even know if he's a big difference maker anymore. We don't know.
We know from his rookie season that he's a hell of a talent. He's going to put fans in the seats.
If he's healthy, fans, they're always there. They're sold out for 48 years. None of that matters.
That's true.
So that's issue 1. It's just that this inept manner of running a football team where Dan Snyder and Bruce Allen, who would not be hired as a player personnel decision maker on any one of the other 31 teams in the NFL. It's inconceivable. Bruce Allen is a salary cap guy. But his father was, of course, the legendary coach of the Redskins, and his brother, the racist senator from Virginia. I'm sorry, I meant racist. So thank you. So the notion that these guys are making football decisions is insane.
Right.
Jerry Jones does it in Dallas, but he at least does it a little bit well. I was reading the Cowboys post-game story because they had some infighting, or it appeared to. We don't know what Des Bryant said to Brandon Weeden on the bench, or if he said this is a crazy game, or if he was yelling at Brandon Weeden. But if you look at the story, the person commenting on everything having to do with the Cowboys personnel after the game is Jerry Jones.
Right.
And that's nuts. But Jerry Jones at least does it well.
They cut to him about 45 times per game.
And he's not a cruel, awful son of a bitch who soiled a franchise like Dan Snyder. So the notion that Snyder's doing it is crazy. And then there's the other part of the story, which is even more alarming, which is this notion, again, that ESPN's Brett McHenry reported, that when Griffin was named the starter, he had his press conference on Friday, right? He met the media for the first time as the new starting quarterback. And then as soon as the interview started, the locker room got loud to drown out the interview. And then worse, when they left to go to another room, they cheered, suggesting that what we know to be true, which is that I don't know whether other players like Robert Griffin III, but what seems clear is that what they hate is that Robert Griffin III has a different set of rules and has been treated as the golden boy by Dan Snyder, and so Dan Snyder doesn't even know how much he's hurting Robert Griffin by doing that.
Right. Well, in addition to that, Pro Football Talk Mike Florio is reporting that ESPN is standing by their statements, and I believe it said it was amateurish reporting. That's what Jay Gruden responded, head coach of the Redskins, with amateurish reporting. And this whole thing with Robert Griffin III and the different treatment, he is a star quarterback. Not maybe statistic-wise, and not maybe in the Andrew Luck sense of it. Obviously, he became the better.
He's the highest profile player on the team.
Absolutely, and he's the one people want to see. Now, at least there's definitely trouble in the locker room, especially with the attention that he's getting. And we see that based off the cheers, based off the drowning out of the interview and everything that's been going along with it. So it's not surprising of all people that this is Dan Snyder, and it wouldn't shock me as you just said, that it's definitely coming from management. I can't say it's definitely coming from management, but it just seems to be coming from management. And of all people, Dan Snyder has just been in the center of the NFL's spotlight, at least general manager-wise, the entire season, and he probably will continue to do that as long as he keeps being the saint that he is.
Yeah. The Michael Wilbon, by the way, has a tweet backing up Britt McHenry's report saying, "I know who I believe when it comes to the credibility of the reporting or the Redskins denying, seen it up close for 30 plus years." This is a dysfunctional organization, specifically in the last 16 seasons under Snyder. Mike Freeman saying that Britt McHenry's report was solid. Now, Mike Jones of the Washington Post and some other reporters counteract that, and it's interesting how they refute it, because of course it's interpretation. We don't know exactly what those players felt, but Mike Jones says the ESPN locker room report was grossly misinterpreted. The noise yelling over the interview, not directed at RG3, but at Redskins PR. He goes on, certain players have yelled, whooped, and hollered over interviews in the locker room for weeks since PR gave extra availability. Is Griffin loved by every member of the team? No. Who is? Not even Russell Wilson. The noise was not related to players upset RG3 was back. Brian McNally, another reporter, says, I was in the Redskins locker room. That player outburst that forced reporters from the room, obnoxious as it was, not directed at RG3. So those guys are responding to what they've seen in the Redskin locker room over the last 3 weeks, which is the players harassing the PR staff for giving extra availability to the reporters. Who is fucking running this team? Shut up! The reporters get in there. They're allowed to be in there. And they ought to be in there. And the fact that, I don't know who to, only a team run by Dan Snyder would have this going on. It is his fault. He is the consistency. He is the thread through which the incredible incompetence and the lack of direction has run through the last 17 years. They've had a ton of different quarterbacks. They've gone through Shanahan and Spurrier and Schottenheimer and 1 year of Norv Turner under Snyder. There's one, Joe Gibbs, there's one thing that's consistent here. Jim fucking Zorn. One thing is consistent here. Dan Snyder. So those reporters, as good, as well-intentioned as they may be, Brian McNally and Mike Jones, I would also say they don't know either. And if Britt McHenry of ESPN and the other reporter who backed him up, Mike Freeman, suggest that they thought it was directed at Griffin, maybe it's louder. Look, man, we know that Snyder has coddled Griffin, and we know the other players resent that. Maybe that's not Griffin's fault. Maybe he could overcome that by simply not being coddled or telling the owner to screw off. But it seems to me there is definitely some problem in that locker room, and mostly it probably doesn't have to do with Robert Griffin and really has to do with Dan Snyder. But I love it. I love every second of it. I hope they lose the rest of their games.
Is this the worst run team in all of professional sports?
Oh, by far. Now that Donald Sterling is gone, we have the worst owner, as I've said many times. Anyway, it's a fascinating story to follow. This is the worst owner in professional sports. This is the worst run organization in professional sports. They used to matter. They don't anymore.